Ladies and gentlemen, Project Motor Racing launched earlier this week, and honestly, it wasn't quite where it wanted to be or where it really should have been. There's a lot in this game that needs work, and that's exactly what this first big patch is trying to tackle. Patch 1.501 changes a lot of things. The AI, the handling, and a huge list of smaller tweaks. I took a deep dive into everything during a live stream, and today I want to walk you through my findings. Overall, my opinion hasn't really changed since launch. There is still plenty of work ahead for Project Motor Racing, and if you don't want to miss future updates on this or any other racing games, feel free to drop a like and subscribe. Let's jump straight into the most important point in my opinion, the handling. A number of things were adjusted across several racing classes. The updated cars were supposed to work better with the automatic blip feature, for instance. When downshifting, you shouldn't get the same wild snap you saw in the preview build. One thing I noticed immediately is that the force feedback strength seems to have been lowered across the board. I had to turn it back up manually. I don't know if this was changed globally or if the FFB slider was altered. I didn't check beforehand because everything worked fine out of the box. But once I readjusted it, the issue was gone. Then I moved on to the GT3 cars. Here, they changed the default setups based on player feedback. They also tweaked tire behavior, engine braking, the blip logic, and made the cars roll more naturally into corners. To be completely honest, my time with the GT3s left me with mixed feelings. On the one hand, some cars are definitely easier to trail brake and carry into the corner. On the other hand, it feels like they mainly achieved that by weakening the engine braking. That means you still have roughly the same stopping power as before. But the strong engine brake character I actually liked at release is basically gone now. That's just my impression. There were cars I could get into corners much better before the patch with barely any brake input. Take the Aston Martin for example. Now it feels noticeably more understeery. Whether that's just something to get used to, or actually better or worse, long-term testing will tell. For now, it simply felt unusual. With the BMW, I was suddenly way faster. No idea why, the thing was an absolute rocket. But the front engine cars weren't really the problem before the patch anyway. So let's look at the mid and rear engine models. I tested the Porsche, and for me it actually felt worse than before. Super twitchy, and with the weaker engine braking I felt less control overall. I mean, you still need to slow the car down somehow. The Corvette is super dangerous under trail braking too, though it doesn't really need any trail braking at all. Its front end is insanely sharp. The thing is a missile now. When I drove the Acura, I encountered a ton of bugs with the penalty system, even though I never left the track. The car is still very nervous. The night and day difference is the Lamborghini. You can trail brake it properly now. It feels stable. And I'd even go as far as saying that even with overheated tires, the Lambo drives better now than it did before release. That's pretty wild. I still think the auto blip logic isn't fully there yet. Downshifting into third is usually fine, but going into second can still cause issues. Overall, for the GT3 class, I'd say this is a step in the right direction. A much bigger plus goes to the hypercars. The difference is night and day. They're so much more drivable now. Exactly the kind of behavior you'd roughly expect from real hypercars. The only issue is that the force feedback oscillates heavily at the end of long straights, at least out of the box. The faster you go, the more the wheel shakes left and right. And that obviously feels terrible. The NGT class got a patch at release that was supposed to make them calmer because the blip logic was not functioning as expected. But honestly, the M3 GTR felt even more unstable to me. It snapped harder and felt more nervous overall. Maybe I was just too used to the GT3s at that point. I also gave the GT4s a try, which I hadn't tested before release. The Toyota Supra drives totally crappy. Then I tested the Cayman, which is also a handful in real life when trail braking. And that one actually felt like it was heading in the right direction. So overall the handling saw a lot of changes. And generally speaking, that's a good thing. Addressing so many issues right after release is positive. Maybe the devs already knew there would be rough edges and had parts of it prepared, but honestly, I would have preferred a 3-day delay for the game, because this patch changes a lot. Especially for the hypercars. A major criticism at release, also from me, was the AI. It just ignored you. Now, the AI actually reacts to you. But in my opinion, it feels more like it tries to avoid you than actually race you. It's hard to describe. The behavior feels unnatural. It doesn't feel like you're racing each other. It feels more like you're just sharing the track. On consoles, the standard is 16 cars maximum in single player. On PC, you could go up to 32. For some tracks, the maximum number of cars on track has been reduced. On the Nordschleife, you can now only run with 20 cars. Probably for stability reasons. Performance hasn't changed much though. Even with 28 or 32 cars during my tests, it's still one of the biggest areas that needs improvement. I tested with lots of cars to see how the AI behaves, like for example in Turn 1 in Monza. They still cause major pileups. They did tweak something though. Opponents can recover from standstills more effectively. That is true, but not always. In Daytona, for example, I still saw several Miatas completely stuck. So overall the AI is a solid improvement, but it still has a long way to go. The penalty system was changed as well. You now get multiple warnings before a penalty. After that, every further offense is a 2-second penalty. That's a decent temporary solution until we hopefully get customizable penalty settings. But the overall logic still needs a full rework. There are so many places where you can cut massively. Like the bus stop chicane in Daytona. You can cut the chicane severely and only get a warning. That should definitely be a slowdown. And slowdown penalties themselves aren't fully thought out yet. Simply giving a slowdown and letting the player choose where to serve it doesn't always work. Another positive change is that saving replays no longer freezes the game for 2 seconds. And replays now run above 30 frames per second. For completeness, I did have a few game crashes, Monza for example. I reinstalled my GPU driver afterward, not sure if that was the cause, but the next stress test was stable again. So here's the verdict on patch 1.501. There are meaningful improvements. The hypercars get a big plus. GT3s get a small plus. For the NGT cars, I'm still unsure. The AI gets a small plus as well, but the message remains the same. Project Motor Racing still isn't where it wants to be, or where it should be. There's still a lot of work to do, and I'm curious to see where things go from here. If you don't want to miss anything, drop a like and subscribe. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.